My name is Elara Winslow, and for most of my life, I've been the shadow in family photos, the one people conveniently cropped out. If my sister Sienna was the bright star, I was the fog they pretended not to see. We shared a roof and DNA, but never the same version of truth. She was everything my parents could brag about at dinner parties: pageants, degrees, perfect teeth. I was the quiet one, the one who asked too many questions, didn't wear enough makeup, and didn't care to compete. By the time we were adults, I had stopped trying to be seen. Sienna thrived in the spotlight, and I learned to work in silence. I built something for myself, slowly, out of sight, and far away from the poisonous comparisons. No one in my family ever asked what I did with my time. They just assumed I floated through life with nothing to show for it. And when Sienna got married, I didn't even get an invite. Not a phone call, not a text. I found out from an old neighbor's Facebook post. She was in white. I was invisible. So when I walked into that party, years later, unannounced, uninvited, and completely transformed, I knew exactly what I'd find. Sienna rolling her eyes like it was instinct, her friends pretending not to notice. And then, her mother-in-law froze mid-sentence, eyes wide, and whispered, almost reverently, "That's her?" It was the first time silence worked in my favor. Sienna was born knowing how to get applause. I always thought it was something she must have studied in the womb: how to angle her chin just right, how to time a smile, how to charm a room before she could even spell the word charm. She was our parents' prize horse at the fair, polished, predictable, perfect. I was the mutt they brought along reluctantly, the one who kept trying to earn a place in a race I was never meant to win. It didn't take long to understand how our household worked. If I aced an exam, my mom would say, "That's nice, but your sister just got a scholarship." If I painted something that made a teacher cry, my dad would nod once before turning to Sienna's violin solo or some new award she'd won. When she was cast as the lead in the school play, they invited the whole extended family. When I got published in a statewide poetry journal, they forgot to mention it over dinner. By the time I was 16, I had learned the most important rule in our family: Sienna mattered. I didn't. So I stopped trying to impress them. I stopped asking them to see me. I spent more time at the library than the dinner table. Found sanctuary in words, in stories, in logic. I started volunteering, not to look good on a resume like Sienna, but because it made sense. Because giving something back felt like the only way I could build value I didn't have to prove. When Sienna got engaged to a finance guy from a powerful family, I got the news through a forwarded group chat. No context, no direct message. I wasn't invited to the engagement dinner. I wasn't invited to the bridal shower. The wedding came and went without my name appearing on a single RSVP list. The official reason? We figured you wouldn't be comfortable. Unofficially? I didn't fit the aesthetic. It was cruel, yes. But by then, I'd already begun the process of letting go. While Sienna was networking at charity auctions and booking spa weekends with her future in-laws, I was elbow-deep in disaster zones, helping rebuild rural schools, sourcing emergency medical supplies, and helping young girls get access to basic education. What started as a single post-grad fellowship became a calling. I built something real, quiet, effective. Off the grid of cocktail chatter, I founded a nonprofit from a shared basement office in Sacramento. Within 5 years, we had field teams in 4 states. Within 7, we were featured in 2 national education publications. I didn't post about it. I didn't need applause. I just wanted it to matter. My parents never asked. Sienna never noticed. And for the longest time, I didn't mind. Then one evening, 3 years before the party, I was invited to a small gala in Denver. Nothing flashy, just a mid-tier benefit event recognizing grassroots efforts in underserved areas. I almost skipped it. I'd just returned from a trip. I had emails stacked for days, and formal events still made me feel like an outsider. But something nudged me to go. After my short speech, a woman approached me near the refreshment table. She looked regal in that understated, effortless way. Pearls, slate blue silk. Her smile was soft but sharp. "You've done good work," she said, her voice low but clear. "Your numbers are lean. Your impact isn't just on paper, I can tell." She introduced herself as Celia. No last name, no organization, just Celia. We talked for 15 minutes about logistics, accountability, sustainability models. I found myself enjoying the conversation, which was rare at these things. She didn't ask about where I went to school or who my parents were. She listened. Before leaving, she touched my elbow gently and said, "I wish more people understood the kind of work you're doing." And then she was gone. I didn't think much of it afterwards. I didn't know who she really was. I just remembered how it felt, being seen by a stranger without a checklist, without prejudice, without an older sister's shadow hanging over my shoulder. I went back to work, focused, detached, at peace. Until 3 weeks ago, when I received a forwarded invite to a high-profile charity event hosted by the Whitmore Foundation. The name didn't ring a bell, but one of our newer board partners insisted I attend, said it would be worth my time. I arrived without expectation. What I didn't know then, what no one had told me, was that Sienna had married into the Whitmore family, and the moment I stepped into that ballroom, I was no longer the sister they'd buried in silence. I was the woman who had once been a stranger to Celia, and someone she never forgot. The Whitmore Foundation Gala was held at the Crestmore Grand, a venue that whispered money in every corner. There was nothing loud or vulgar about it. Everything was velvet and glass and restraint, the kind of place where power dressed itself in elegance and never had to raise its voice. I'd been in similar rooms before, but never as myself. Tonight was different. I arrived early enough to avoid the fanfare, but late enough to not draw attention. My dress was black, understated, tailored to move. My heels weren't sky-high. My earrings didn't sparkle. I didn't come to dazzle, I came to be undeniable. Inside, everything gleamed. Waiters moved like chess pieces. Strings played from behind a curtain of orchids. There was a tension in the air, not aggressive, but alert. People noticed people here, that was the point. And then, she saw me. Sienna stood near the champagne tower in a cream satin gown that caught the light like a knife. Her laugh had that forced edge I recognized too well. Engineered charm. She turned slightly, scanning the room, and froze when her eyes landed on mine. A beat passed. Then, as if on cue, she rolled her eyes. Not subtly, not privately. She did it like a performance, one she had rehearsed since we were kids. The, ugh, not her again act. I saw her nudge the woman next to her, whisper something. Both women turned to look, though one had the decency to look embarrassed when I met her gaze. I didn't look away. I gave a small smile. Not warm, not confrontational, just present, like someone who didn't need to shrink to fit the room. I walked in farther, weaving through guests, offering brief nods to those I recognized from nonprofit circles. The deeper I went, the more I noticed people reading my name tag. Some squinted, others smiled faintly. One man murmured something to his wife, who leaned in for a better look. My name, E. Winslow, wasn't a household one, but in the right circles, it meant something. And this was one of those circles. I reached the refreshment table and had just lifted a glass of water when I heard it. Elara Winslow? I turned slowly, already half suspecting the voice. Celia Whitmore. She looked exactly the same, only more composed. Her gown was navy with beaded cuffs. Her hair was pinned back in a way that exposed her whole face. No need to hide. She was the kind of woman people called elegant because intimidating made them too uncomfortable to admit. She looked at me, and then froze. Her glass didn't move. Her expression didn't change at first, but her eyes widened, just slightly, and then narrowed with something like awe. "That's her?" she said, low, deliberate, as if she couldn't quite believe what she was seeing. The room didn't stop, but my side of it did. Heads turned. The phrase rippled. Guests paused their conversations, trying to piece together what was unfolding. "That's her," Celia said again, this time almost smiling. Sienna was behind her. I felt, more than saw, the way her body stiffened. She'd heard it. She knew exactly what was coming, and there was no stopping it now. "You're the founder of EWC," Celia said. "The mobile labs, the literacy clinics, the school rescue fund. You're that Elara Winslow? I am, I said simply. Her smile deepened, warm and rich. I never forgot your speech in Denver. I told my husband afterward, that woman is changing things quietly. I wished more people were paying attention. I was stunned into stillness. Your team's work in Junction County. My nephew teaches there. He said kids who used to skip school are now begging to stay after. One girl built a solar panel model from your lab kits. He said it changed the whole atmosphere. I had no idea it reached your family, I said. It did, she said. And now I'm thrilled to see you again. I'd love to introduce you to a few people tonight, if you're willing. I'd be honored. Her hand touched my arm briefly as she gestured me forward. We began to move toward the main room. The murmur behind us spread like wildfire. As we passed the champagne tower, I saw Sienna again, frozen. Her smile, too bright, too sharp, was cracking. One of her friends leaned toward her and asked a question I didn't hear, but I saw the panic flash across her eyes as she replied too quickly. A man near us asked Celia, "Wait, is that the Winslow from the Pine program?" Celia answered for me, "That's her." And there it was again. That's her. 3 syllables that changed everything. A whispered coronation, a quiet reckoning, and for the first time in years, I stood still in a room full of strangers and felt seen for who I truly was. Not as Sienna's sister, not as the forgotten daughter, not as the girl they left out of wedding photos, just me. Sienna followed us with her eyes, but never her feet. I caught glimpses of her throughout the night, hovering near small clusters of people, trying to reclaim the ease she once commanded. But something had shifted. Her laugh was too forced, her smiles too delayed, and the people she tried to impress were now looking past her, eyes trailing toward me. I didn't need to gloat. I didn't need to explain. The silence did all the talking. A few guests came over to introduce themselves, warm, curious, respectful. They referenced projects I had nearly forgotten, quoted impact numbers from reports I'd thought no one read. Some asked how I started. Others asked how they could help. No one asked if I was Sienna's sister. That alone was a kind of freedom I hadn't tasted before. At one point, I excused myself from the cluster of board members Celia had introduced me to and made my way toward the exit hall. I wasn't planning on staying long. This wasn't my crowd, not really. I had come, made my presence felt, and watched the foundation of Sienna's social myth collapse in real time. That was enough, but just before I reached the coat check, I heard a voice behind me. "Elara!" I paused. The weight in the voice didn't come from familiarity. It came from fury. I turned. She was there. Sienna, standing a few feet behind me, arms rigid at her sides. Her makeup was still immaculate, but the muscles in her face were twitching, like she was holding back everything she wanted to scream. "You planned this, didn't you?" she hissed. "You waited until the perfect moment to walk in and steal the entire room." I tilted my head. "I was invited." "You knew she'd be here, Celia. You knew she liked you. You used her." "I didn't know anything," I said, my voice steady. "I just showed up, like anyone else on the guest list." Sienna gave a bitter, short laugh. "Don't act innocent, Elara. You always pretend to be above everything, so humble, so generous, but deep down, you crave attention like the rest of us. Don't you?" "No," I said simply. "I crave impact. That's different." She blinked, like the words stung. "You never used to be like this," she said. I almost laughed. "That's funny, because I think I've always been like this. You just never bothered to see it." Something in her faltered for a second, just long enough for the mask to crack. Then her eyes narrowed again. "Do you know what it's been like, trying to explain who you are to them? You don't fit. You don't look the part. You make people uncomfortable." "That's not my problem," I said quietly. "That's yours." Her lips pressed into a thin, pale line. "You could have stayed in your lane, but instead, you had to show up and embarrass me." "No," I said. "What embarrassed you was the truth. And it's not new. It's just louder now." We stood in silence. The clink of glasses and distant string music were the only sounds between us. She took a step closer. I don't care how many people think you're impressive. You're still the same girl who sat alone at lunch, the one no one wanted around. I met her gaze. And yet, here I am, invited, welcomed, respected, without pretending to be someone I'm not. That landed. I could see it. Sienna's mouth opened, then closed. Her shoulders fell slightly. She looked away first. I stepped forward, not with anger, but with clarity. I didn't come here to ruin your night. I didn't even come for you. I came because the work matters. And apparently, some people in your world actually recognize that. I told them you were small, she said, voice quieter now. You weren't supposed to show up like this. I know, I said, but the thing about truth is, it doesn't need permission. With that, I turned and walked away. She didn't call after me. As I approached the front lobby, Celia appeared again, gracefully moving through a circle of donors. When she saw me, her face lit up. Slipping out? She asked gently. I think I've done what I came to do. I think so too, she said, then added, I hope we'll talk more soon. There's space at the table for women like you. She squeezed my hand with the kind of quiet strength that doesn't need applause to be felt. Outside, the air was cool, not sharp, but cleansing. My car pulled up, and as I stepped in, I didn't look back. That chapter, whatever it was, had written its last line. The ride home was quiet. No music, no messages, no mental replays. Just the low hum of the tires on pavement and a kind of stillness I hadn't felt in years. I sat there, hands folded, letting the silence settle around me like a soft blanket. There was no need for fireworks, no imaginary applause, no revenge fantasy playing out in my head. Because what happened tonight wasn't about Sienna. It was about me. For most of my life, I'd moved through rooms like I was asking permission to exist. I'd spent years hoping someone would finally turn around and say, hey, we see you now. But tonight, when Celia said, that's her, something in me shifted. Not because she said it, but because I already knew it was true. The moment wasn't about being discovered. It was about being confirmed. And strangely, that made all the difference. I used to imagine what it would feel like to be in a room where my name meant something. Not because of who I was related to, not because of where I came from, but because of what I built. Now I know. And now I also know I don't need it. Recognition is nice, but it isn't purpose. And what I've built, slowly, quietly, far away from the noise, is purpose. As the car pulled up to my apartment, I stepped out feeling lighter. I walked up the steps without hesitation. I didn't look back. I didn't wonder what Sienna was thinking. I didn't feel the weight of her silence chasing me. I closed the door behind me and exhaled. My place was small, warm, filled with books and photos that meant something real. Not curated memories, not highlight reels, just truth, people, impact, moments that didn't need a filter to matter. I brewed tea and watched the steam rise, letting my muscles finally relax. The air was quiet in the right way, not empty, just full of peace. And I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who stayed home while everyone else went to Sienna's recitals, the one who didn't get invited, who didn't get asked, who kept doing the work anyway. What would I say to her now? I think I'd just sit beside her, let her know she wasn't invisible, let her know that every time she stayed true to herself, she was writing the story we're living now. Sienna's version of the past no longer belongs to me. And I don't need to edit it. Let her say what she wants. The people who matter saw the truth with their own eyes. And more importantly, so did I. I didn't walk into that ballroom looking for redemption. I walked in already whole. So when Celia said, that's her, the room may have heard it for the first time. But me? I've been saying it for years. That's her, that's me.